For over 2 millennia, Western philosophy has operated on a single massive assumption. The study of reality is the study of being, ontology, the idea that existence is the absolute ground of everything that is real. This fixation on existence originates with the architects of classical logic, most notably Aristotle. Within this framework, anything that cannot manifest, anything that does not exist as a thing or a thought, is categorized as impossible. Our inquiry into reality stops at the border of what we can define through the conditions of manifestation. In 1932, René Guénon argued that being is actually a secondary principle. In his work, The Multiple States of Being, he proposed that what we call existence is merely one specific mode of a much larger, unmanifested reality. Guénon's claim is that being is not the infinite. It is the principle of manifestation, which makes it a limited domain. It is defined by the very fact that it leaves something outside of itself. By ignoring this unmanifested realm, what he calls non-being, Western thought restricts itself to a subset of reality, mistaking the part for the metaphysical infinite. To reach a true metaphysical understanding, we must look past the limits of being and recognize universal possibility as the only true, unconditioned absolute. To grasp this, we first have to distinguish the infinite from the indefinite. In metaphysics, a mathematical infinite is a logical contradiction. This fractal expansion is merely an extension of the finite. It is indefinite, not infinite. Adding to a finite sequence only creates a larger finite sequence. No matter how far boundaries are pushed, the result remains measurable, bounded, and subject to its own conditions. The true metaphysical infinite, however, is absolutely unconditioned. It possesses zero limits of any kind. Guénon uses the term universal possibility as the only logical synonym for this metaphysical infinite. Universal possibility must contain all possibilities without exception. To exclude even a single possibility would be to posit a limit, which would immediately destroy its infinite nature. Because universal possibility is limitless, it cannot be restricted to the tiny subset of possibilities that happen to manifest in our physical reality. We can visualize this by dividing universal possibility into two domains, manifestation and non-manifestation. Imagine this canvas as universal possibility. A center circle labeled being contains possibilities only as they manifest. The boundless surrounding space is non-being, the metaphysical zero. It holds possibilities that never manifest, plus those yet to enter the circle and those that have left it. Logically, non-being contains being. It encompasses it, making non-being the more universal and superior principle. Non-being is not nothingness. It is the most positive affirmation of reality possible because it is the only state that is completely unconditioned. In contrast, any state within the domain of being is inherently transient and conditional. It is defined by the limits that allow it to exist in a specific form. This inverts the Western hierarchy. Permanence does not exist in being, but in the unconditioned state of non-being. This leads to a difficult question. If being is a single, unified principle, how does it result in the massive multiplicity of worlds and states we observe? Multiplicity is not something that emerges out of unity. It is eternally contained within it. Guénon explains this through the analogy of the dream state. A single dreamer's consciousness generates a diverse world of objects, environments, and other people. The dreamer's core unity is never fractured or diminished by the complexity of the dream world they are generating. Universal existence is the integral manifestation of the possibilities within being. It functions like that dream. This existence contains an indefinite multiplicity of degrees, each one a different mode of manifestation. Multiplicity is a contingent attribute of unity. The complexity of the universe does not threaten the fundamental oneness of its principle. We can map this multiplicity on a grid. A vertical axis intersects an indefinite number of stacked horizontal planes. The human individual occupies just one of these horizontal planes. Our existence is constrained by a specific set of limits, like three-dimensional space and linear time. The primary condition defining our plane is the mental faculty, the use of discursive reason. This individualized reason is a localized tool, entirely different from the pure, unconditioned, universal intellect. Possessing this mental faculty gives the human state no metaphysical superiority over other manifested states. On this grid, the human condition is a specific intersection of contingent conditions, one point among an indefinite number, none of which hold a privileged rank. Anthropocentrism is a metaphysical error. If our individual identity is tied to the specific mental and physical conditions of this single plane, then that identity is as contingent as the conditions themselves. In the context of a being that spans an indefinite number of states, the localized I loses its claim to being a permanent center. The ego is an illusion created by isolating a tiny fragment of a single transient plane and mistaking it for the totality of the being. True permanence cannot be found within the individual mind or anywhere within the boundaries of being, because everything that manifests is subject to change. Ultimate realization requires moving past this fixation on the human mental state. Realization involves ascending the vertical axis, moving beyond individualized states and transcending the limits of being entirely. By anchoring identity not in existence, but in the absolute permanence of the metaphysical zero, the being achieves the totality of universal possibility.